I'm going to be talking about 3 resources or strategies that you can use, both to find course materials while teaching remotely, and also hopefully to lower course costs. So that's kind of my focus for this. So I'll be talking about how to use library resources, how to find and use OERs or open educational resources, and then finally how to work with the reserves department to get those online and accessible for your students. And everything I'm going to talk about today is available on this website that we're looking at right here. So I'll just post a link to that in the chat so you can refer back to that later if you want a refresher or if you want more information. Okay. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to talk about, like I said, is how to use existing library resources for remote teaching. So, as always, you can work with your subject librarian or the ALS team to find replacements for your textbooks. So we can either use items the library already owns, or your subject specialist might be able to purchase an item for you to replace whatever book you were using if your students can't access it right now. So for example, we might be able to purchase an ebook with unlimited seats that your students can access from home. So faculty handle this in different ways. Some of them find a one-to-one replacement. Others might piece readings together by grabbing a couple chapters from a book here, grabbing a few articles there, and sort of doing it that way. So one example of how you could do this, and this is from before we were all working remotely, but I think it's still valid. For a family and consumer sciences class, Professor Yoko Mamura had a traditional textbook that she was using before, but she wound up replacing it entirely with some scanned book chapters, some journal articles, and some information from professional organizational websites, and then had that all available through Canvas for her students. So not only was that all available remotely, but she also brought the course costs down to 0, which is really fantastic. Yeah, and like I said, you can embed all of these on Canvas or put them on reserve so students can easily find them. So that's just one example. The next thing I wanted to talk about is OERs, or open educational resources. So as you probably know, OERs are basically teaching and learning materials that are available for access and use and adaptation because they're either in the public domain or they're available under an open license. So you're free to use them, pretty creatively and pretty flexibly. And many of them often go through a similar peer review process to like traditionally published materials, so you don't have to compromise on quality either. So, so here, as you can see, we've got a few different resources for how to find OERs. The one I wanted to highlight for today is our new resources by discipline page that you can see here. So as you can see, we have these organized by discipline, like I mentioned. So it's really easy to drill down and find things that relate to your field. So for example, if we're interested in economics, I can just drill down to the appropriate section. And by the way, this was put together by our wonderful intern, Melissa Kober, recently. So we're really grateful for that. So anyway, from the econ page, you can see here, you can browse the different OER repositories by discipline. So for example, if I wanted to take a look at Merlot, which is one of the top OER repositories for peer-reviewed materials, they have textbooks, but they also have a lot of other really great stuff like assignments, course modules, open access journal articles. So you can even mix and match all of these to create like a customized course reading list if you want to. But anyway, here you can see when you click on the link, it brings up stuff just in your discipline, so you don't have to weed out the irrelevant things. Yeah, so I would say check out Merlot and check out the other repositories in your area to see what's accessible for you or available to you. And one last other thing I wanted to highlight on this page, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see textbook highlights, again, in your discipline. So for example, one platform that you will see come up a lot is OpenStax, which is one of the top providers of peer-reviewed, openly licensed textbooks. So the nice thing about OpenStax is your students can access all of them online for free. So that's really nice and straightforward. But if they do want if they do want a print version, those are pretty moderately priced too. They go up to about $50, but many of them are cheaper, like $30 or $40. So yeah, whether you students want print or online, that's another good option. So yeah, I would say, again, check out the OER resources for your discipline and see what options you have for class readings. Let me see here. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, like I mentioned, is how to work with the reserves department once you've found items that you want to share with your students or that you are interested in for yourself. How to work with the reserves department for that. So I'm going to go to other cost-saving strategies. And here's some information about how to put things on reserve. So I'm just going to follow this link here, which will take you to let me scroll down here, take you to the online reserve request form. So once you know what you want to use, I would say go ahead and fill out that form, and it will initiate the process with the reserves department of making that accessible through the course catalog and putting it on your LMS on Canvas if you would like to. So if it's something we already own online, that should be pretty straightforward for them to go ahead and put it up. If it's something we don't own, that will initiate a purchase request, so your subject librarian can see if we have the funds to purchase items for you. If it's something we only have in print, that's a little trickier, but since the staff isn't on campus right now to scan things like they normally would. But we'll see what options we have. They could try to get the item for you through interlibrary loan, or again, see if we can purchase an electronic copy. So yeah, I just want to emphasize that they're there as a resource for you to help get these materials accessible to your students. So you're free to reach out to the reserves team or reach out to the ALS team, and we'll see what options we have, basically.
So I'm just going to go over a couple of quick things regarding the accessibility of any materials that you get for your students online. So most things will come in, if you're getting it from one of the resources that Liz outlined, like OpenStax, they'll come in a nice PDF format, which is great. Just one thing to keep in mind with those PDFs is that while they will be nicely laid out, they will not be fully accessible. So that means like structured and tagged for use by a screen reader, which is most resources don't come fully tagged like that. That is something that myself and the Universal Design Center can help with. But the things that we should look for when we're getting things like PDFs for OERs is things with bookmarks, with page numbers, and most importantly, with selectable text, because the student will be able to copy and paste from that, and we know that the text is being recognized by the program. If you decide that you want to put together resources and put them on Canvas, which is great, just a couple of things to keep in mind is avoiding making copies of copies, because that'll degrade the text and make it harder to make it accessible for a student. Or screenshots of text, because that's not going to be searchable. It's just going to be a picture and not something that you can actually pull text from. And then any other resources where the text may have been cut off for some reason, like if you did make a copy, because then it won't be able to identify the whole word from whatever's cut off. So basic accessibility is basically just like it's structured with, it has headings for the headings in the chapters, it has description for images, and the font is such that it's like sans serif, it has size 12, and when you get an ebook or something from something like OpenStax, those tend to be scalable, meaning you can make it larger or smaller for the student, and it'll scale along with whatever device they're using, which is really nice. And there's also, some professors like to use videos, which is also great. Just a couple of things to keep in mind there. Videos need captioning, audio description where relevant. So anything where things that are happening in the video need to be described in order for the student to get whatever context is happening there. And then just clear audio and video. So those are just some things to keep in mind. I know it's a big realm of accessibility, and nobody is expecting perfection out of this, but if we can start with like a good quality PDF or document that we can work with, that's going to make it a lot easier for us to get something accessible to students who need it.